It's the Free Relief Golf Podcast. Thanks to the Blue Wire Hustle program, this is the place where listeners can explore the hidden cost of elite amateur golf. It'll always cost nothing to get some free relief, so let's get on with it, shall we? Hello and welcome back to the Free Relief Golf Podcast. I'm Freddie, and as always I hope you're safe and well. This episode is the second in a series of episodes that I initially set out to do when I first created the Free Relief Golf Podcast. I've been playing in some tournaments this season and I'm looking to outline the cost of playing in those events and report back to you, the listener, so you can get a first-hand experience of what it would cost you to do the same. Last week we were at the St Andrews Links Trophy, and this week we're at the Tennant Cup in Glasgow. There's quite a lot of detail to cover and I want to fly through it, I'm sure you do too, so let's get into it. However, before we cover the Tennant Cup, I must include a brief summary of the Drumpelia Gents Open, which I played this week, a place and a golf course that I'd never been to before, but just on the outskirts of Glasgow, and it was a Gents Open for £20, 36 holes included, and lunch for a mere £2 per item. On a menu that they gave you on the first tee, you just had to tick whatever you wanted, every item £2. I went for soup and a scrambled egg roll to come to a hefty title of £4. But it was such a friendly welcome that I was given by the members and the organisers at Drumpelia. The committee were there in their shirt and tie, very proper. I'm very proud of the club that they were representing, it seemed. The course was in great condition. Now, apparently, Drumpelia have managed to secure a new greenkeeper from Ladybank, and for the last 6 weeks before this Gents Open, well, those were his first 6 weeks in the job, and apparently he's turned the course around. The greens, I have to say, were looking excellent for a parkland course where the weather's been a bit dodgy this year. No signs of any imperfections. Although I must say that some of the flags were suspect on side slopes, but personally, I enjoy that challenge. I had the pleasure for the day, the whole 36 holes, 2 rounds. I was playing with a local legend, some might say, a 3-time Walker Cup player called Graham Rankin, and another local player who's a plus handicap, Stevie. The handicap limit to enter this was 6, so it was a proper Gents Open, a proper kind of scratch open. So a lot of great players were there, but I was very pleased to have the company that I got in Graham and Stevie. And especially as they were local members of Drumpelia, so thankfully they were happy to guide me around the course and show me where to hit it. And certainly that first round was a lot of learning, and the second round we got to learn from some mistakes. But what a great day. The lunch, well, in the end, Graham actually covered the lunch, so I saved £4 there, but £20 for 36 holes cannot be argued. Such a friendly club, and I would thoroughly recommend to everyone to go play that next year if you get the opportunity to. It's such great value for money. The people are great. On the day, I believe England were playing Croatia in the football, and of course England won, so the day couldn't have been much better. I have rated it by the scoring scale that I set out in the last episode, the St Andrews Links Trophy episode, and if you haven't listened to that, I strongly recommend you go to, because why? We know it's good for the analytics, but you'll know if you'd listened to that I have 11 areas where I rate out of 5 for an event, and Drumpelia, I'm not really looking to rate Gents Opens, but I gave it 41.5 out of 55. For what it's not trying to be a world-leading event, but it's great value for money. It's probably the best value for money event I will play this year. They keep it simple, they focus on the warm welcome and the golf offering, and I can't wait to go back, and I will be trying to take friends with me. So thank you to everyone at Drumpelia for helping me to have such a great day of golf, and indeed all of the competitors who were there that day. I'm sure everyone enjoyed it, especially because it was sunny, which, as we all know, could be a rarity in Glasgow. However, the sunny weather was not a rarity at the Tennant Cup. What a smooth transition. So, what is the Tennant Cup? Well, it's a 72-hole World Amateur Golf Ranking WAGR event, which I assume to be, because I couldn't quite tell from the website, but I assume it to be part of the Scottish Men's Order of Merit schedule. You can enter with a handicap index of 1.0 or better, and annually it is guaranteed to host some of the best Scottish amateurs. And in fact, the winner this year was Matthew Clark, who only the week before had won medalist honours at the Amateur Championship up at Nairn, so the players don't get much better than that. To give you a rough idea of field strength, the Tennant Cup, on the alphabetical listing which I outlined in last week's episode, where the St Andrews Links trophy was an A, the Eden Tournament was like an F or a G. The Tennant Cup, before the power rankings were introduced with the World Amateur Golf Ranking, which I don't need to go into, the Tennant Cup was a D. So pretty much somewhere in the middle of the Links Trophy and the Eden Tournament, alongside other events such as the Battle Trophy at Crail. The field size is actually quite small for the Tennant Cup. The field size was 60 players and the entry fee was £70. So we're going to go into what you get for this right now. As always, we'll go through the three sections: the golf, the merchandise and the food. Starting with the golf. So firstly, you get 2 free practice rounds. You get one at Glasgow Killamont, which is normally £70 green fee this time of year. And you get one at the Glasgow Gales, on the other side of Glasgow, which we'll get into, which is normally £75 green fee this time of year. So straight away, £145 worth of golf for free, not to be knocked or sniffed at. Along with this, you get 2 guaranteed tournament rounds on the Glasgow Gales course. Now, it's a field of 60, and the cut is actually the top 40 in ties, so it's a generous cut. And if you make the cut on the Glasgow Gales course, which is a linksy course, you get 2 rounds on the Killamont, which is a parkland course, on the Sunday. So the Gales on the Saturday, Killamont on the Sunday. So other relevant golfing expenses, well, the practice area in terms of range balls, you don't have to pay for them, which is always a result. I believe it was Shrixon balls on the range at the Glasgow Gales. There's not a driving range, it's just a net at the Killamont. So yeah, Shrixon golf balls, a grass range, which you always feel like you're at a proper event when you're on a grass range. And it had an interesting short game area at the Glasgow Gales course. It had a little raised green, couple of bunkers, and raised greens gives you lots of options for different shots, little bump and runs, or you can play the flop shots. It's all interesting, and you've got to love that in a short game area. Range balls are included free of charge, as I've already said, and again, there was seemingly a plentiful supply of balls. No stingy distributions of 20 counted out one by one. They just gave you as many as you needed. And we know that always makes you feel like a player. The final kind of golf cost was the yardage books. The yardage books were really reasonable, to be fair. It was £5 for each book from each course. So one at the Killamont, one at the Gales, £5 each, £10 total. So all in all, your golf costs aren't going to be astronomical playing the Tennant Cup. Now in terms of merchandise, you'll recall last week at the St Andrews Links Trophy, there was a little pouch of goodies, but no such luck at the Tennant Cup. Not that... I'm not going to judge them for it because it's not trying to be that kind of event, but they did give every competitor free hand sanitizer, and this was mainly because they were playing all bunkers as in play. There was no pick and place rule, which has been in play throughout pretty much all of COVID. Rakes were back, bunkers were in play, players it lies, and the sanitizer was... Well, players were encouraged to use the sanitizer as we went round if you were in a bunker and had to use a rake, just so there was no transmission. Absolutely no chance of transmission during the event itself. So not much to report on merch, but plenty to report on food. Now, upon arrival, I began to hear rumblings about a buffet lunch. But I thought surely with COVID, maybe a buffet lunch isn't the best idea. However, I was delighted to find out that COVID hadn't brought an end to this seemingly illustrious tradition. Literally everyone was talking about it in practice rounds, and they were saying, do you know about the buffet lunch that they serve at the Gales? Oh, it's unreal. And when it came to it on tournament day, I have to say it did not disappoint. Buffet worked because it had a chef serving you, and there was no excess transmission with having to use serving spoons or anything like that. But the lunch laid on a Saturday, let me just paint the picture for you. You had a choice of a chicken burger, beef chili, or chicken curry. All, I must say, not just delicious sounding options, but protein-rich options. So they've got the athlete in mind, the aspiring elite amateur golfer in mind. But they also had dessert. Massive slices of cake. Looked like chocolate and orange, can't be sure. Certainly there was chocolate in there. I think some Victoria sponge. And there were pros and cons to this decadent lunch. I mean, the pros is that I love all of that food. And had I been sat there all day, I probably would have tried everything. And I probably would have had a lovely time doing so. Certainly would have been focusing... I would not have been focusing on my golf, that is for sure. But the con is that we'd finished our first round, we only had a quick turnaround with tea times. So firstly, there was no time for dessert, but also there was no time really for any of the big meals, such as the beef chilli or the chicken curry. So I went for the chicken burger, and gotta say, it was magnificent. Protein rich, as previously outlined. But I did hear from some of my fellow competitors that they might have preferred some lighter lunch options or something that they could easily take back out with them to make the most, get their value for money from that buffet. But the buffet lived up to the hype, must say. Now, in terms of eating throughout the week, well, dinners. And I'll only focus on dinners. Now, the first night, the place I was staying, there was home cooking. It was a risotto made by my friend James, and we'll get into that. Night 2, we had fish and chips, a classic Friday arrangement if you're in the UK, and the cost was generously covered by my hosts. Night 3, more home cooking, another British classic, fajitas, and night 4, we went for an Italian takeaway, a calzone the size of my head, and again the cost was generously covered by my hosts. But I hear you cry, who were my hosts? Well, I stayed with some of my best newly engaged friends in Lenzie, James and Sarah. Lenzie being a small town just outside Glasgow. Next year, I'm lucky enough I'm going to be James's best man, and both he and Sarah kindly let me bring my airbed and stay for a few days whilst I was playing the tournament, and I've got to say we had a lovely time catching up and sharing stories from the past year or so where we haven't been able to catch up. And indeed, after the tournament finished, I stayed there a few extra days. So it was a loving, mutual arrangement that we had. And their generosity really helped throughout the week, especially with the food, and especially seeing as Lenzie is much closer to the golf courses in St Andrews. It saved me hours of both driving and sleeping. And, well, I say Lenzie's much closer, but actually it's 20 minutes away from the Killamont course, but it's actually an hour away it's still an hour away from the Glasgow Gales course. So I comfortably got through a tank of petrol during the weekend, getting to and from Lenzie and then to and from the Gales and Killamont courses. It was a bit inconvenient that the Gales and the Killamont are far away, but they're both under the banner of the Glasgow Golf Club. And they're still prestigious courses, so who am I to complain? So the prizes for this tournament, well, it was normal increments for the vouchers, £500 for the winner, £375 for second, etc, etc. And then that brings me to the total cost of the Tennant Cup for me. The entry was £70. I had to buy a yardage book for both the Killamont and the Glasgow Gales courses. That came to £10. And for travelling, it was £40 for my tank of petrol, and I needed all of it as well. Accommodation, James and Sarah, being the legends that they are, wouldn't let me put anything towards it. My love and adoration was enough for them. And again, as I say with food, they covered all the dinners. And I brought my snacks and breakfast stuff like my porridge and that. So the food cost was close to zero. So all in all, the total cost of the Tennant Cup for me was £120, which ended up being very reasonable for 2 days of practice. There's 2 tournament days, 72 holes. £120 for those 4 days, that's reasonable. And the approximate cost for outsiders for the week, and I know that this is what you've been waiting for, the £70 entry, the £10 for the 2 yardage books, tank of petrol £40, had a look at the Glasgow Steps Premier Inn, rates looking between £40 to £50 a night, so if you're staying 4 to 5 nights, you're looking between £160 to £200 for your accommodation. And if you're spending £15 a day on food for dinners, that would come to £60 if you're staying for 4 nights. That's Thursday through to leaving on the Monday. So for an outsider, the Tennant Cup would cost you between £340 to £380. So, On to my fabled overall experience rating. But first, a few logistical points. The Tennant Cup was a smooth event. It was played on 2 fantastic golf courses in excellent condition. You could tell the greenkeepers had gone all out to test these best Scottish amateur golfers. The Glasgow Golf Club membership and committee are clearly proud of the service they provide competitors with, and they absolutely should be. And they looked so smart on the days in their shirts and ties, just like Drumpelia Gents Open. They really ran a tight ship, and they should be proud of the event that they organise. Chatting to the morning and afternoon starters, as well as the volunteers present at the tournament, all of them added to the experience, and they helped make the Tennant Cup a pleasure to be part of. Once you get to the venues, the offering is truly first class. So, once again, I've scored out of 5 across 11 different areas. And as I said last week, this is so I can ultimately rank the events and compare them against each other. The 11 areas, to refresh your memory: hospitality, practice facilities, practice round offering, course condition, course layout, course setup, organisation, communication, location, parking, and weather. The St Andrews Links Trophy last week got a 52.5, the Tennant Cup a 49.5, so only 3 marks behind, for an event that is not trying to be an international star-studded event. I took some marks off for organisation only because, and this is a bit harsh, but I thought I'd missed the initial entry, and I emailed the secretary of the Glasgow Golf Club to ask if I could enter, and they said, entries have closed. I got an email back an hour later saying, entries are open again, by the way. Do you still want to enter? I think they'd kind of mucked up the online booking system where they'd had 60 slots available for the field of 60. But actually that meant you couldn't have more than 60 players enter the event in the first place and then conduct a handicap ballot. So whatever, that was a small bit of organisation that they lost some marks on. But it didn't affect my overall experience of the tournament, I suppose. The location. It lost some marks for the location, and not because of the locations themselves. Killamont Gales, fantastic golf courses. I'd really recommend people go play them if they get the opportunity. But they're just so far away from each other. Like I say, it was a 20-minute drive to one and an hour drive to the other one. That really adds to your petrol costs. And it just makes the event a bit clunky, a bit less convenient than perhaps some other events. Took some marks away for parking just because there's a lot of members about during the practice rounds. Well, certainly at the Killamont course that was the case. I took some marks off for course layout just because this was my first time playing the Gales. I really loved the Gales course, but all I kept hearing from locals or different members I spoke to was that the course was better when it used to have trees. They've taken a lot of trees out to make it look more like a true links, I suppose. And all I've heard is people regretting that. So I really like the course, but hearing people say it used to be better just left me with a sense of longing. And in terms of setup, I mean, it was exactly the same as St Andrews Links Trophy. Every single slope was used on those greens. The pins were on side slopes. The pins were filthy. Which is definitely really fun, but I'm learning that is par for the course in national level amateur golf now. So, becoming less naive with every passing week. Overall though, 49.5 out of 55, I've got to say, the Tennant Cup, run by the Glasgow Golf Club, is a great event. I think I've seen since it's the oldest amateur event in the UK. If it's not the oldest, I'm sorry for spreading fake news, but it's certainly up there. It's well established, it's a trophy well worth winning and competing for. It looked like you are guaranteed a friendly welcome, and both venues, the Killamont and the Gales, are very well organised and have plenty of volunteers on site if you've got any questions or need directing to anywhere if you're a new visitor. The courses are a treat, and for the entry fee, as I said, they're worth between £70 and £75 as a green fee, and you're getting all this golf thrown in just for the single £70 entry fee. The event's an absolute bargain when looking solely at golf. It's just the travel and accommodation and logistics for anyone travelling from outside of Glasgow. The travel and accommodation might make you think twice. And that's understandably so, but after thinking twice, you should probably come to the conclusion that you should play the Tennant Cup. So that was the Tennant Cup, and next time we will be open qualifying, regional and hopefully final open qualifying. This year it's a different format, and I guess I'll explain that in the next episode, but I'll be travelling down to Blackpool, staying in Blackpool, and I'll be playing at St Anne's Old Links. The entries cost me £150. And if you listen to my previous podcast on the 10 things you need to know about 2021 regional open qualifying, you'll understand that that is a cheap entry fee for a shot at glory and a shot at achieving your dreams. The golf, I already know, includes practice rounds and tournament rounds. The travel and accommodation, as I say, is staying in Blackpool. I'm sharing with my dad, who's going to be travelling up and caddying for me. And in terms of merchandise and food, all I know is that we're going to be having hotel food. And if it's anything like 2019 Open qualifying, we'll get some free tees and pitch marks. So I cannot wait for that merchandise, that Open logo merchandise. So yeah, that's been a lot of me talking, a lot of you listening. So let's have a second to decompress. And when I come back, we'll wrap up the podcast. So that was every practical thing you need to know about the Tennant Cup. If there's anything major that I've missed out or that you'd like to hear about that could be useful for your future planning, or even my future planning for events, then get in touch with the podcast. We're on Instagram and YouTube as the Free Relief Golf Podcast, and Twitter with the handle @GolfRelief. So follow and subscribe to receive updates when every new episode's released. And you can always get in touch with me personally at freddielawrence.golf@gmail.com. I'd love to hear any feedback you have to make future episodes specific to what you'd like to hear. Until then, I've been Freddie, you've been lovely. See you next time.